Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, and today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you. One-man show. Every crime is unthinkable and monstrous. However, some atrocities defy the slightest explanation and comprehension. They shock with their cruelty, recklessness, and lack of principles. I dare say you have never heard anything like this before. This new story takes us to Costa Mesa, California, USA. The prosecutor in the case stated that everything turned out differently than it seemed. Even the craziest Hollywood screenwriters couldn't have come up with such an ending, confessed Matt Murphy in an interview. Double disappearance. The events involve several people. The key figures are 26-year-old Samuel Hare and 23-year-old Julie Kibuishi. The young people disappeared on May 21st, 2010. Their families sounded the alarm when they heard nothing from them the next day. By midday, the Kibuishi family contacted the police, reporting that their daughter was not answering calls or messages. However, the police responded that Julie was an adult and didn't have to check in, especially over the weekend, and suggested waiting a bit longer. Unfortunately, a few hours later, the family's fears were confirmed. The police reported that the young woman was no longer alive. Stephen Hare, Sam's father, often visited his son. After serving in Afghanistan, Sam exhibited symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. Although not officially diagnosed, his parents were concerned. They called, invited him over, or visited him themselves. They hadn't heard from Sam for 2 days, and he even missed a planned dinner, which was unusual for the former military man known for his responsibility and discipline. His family had a bad feeling, so Mr. Hare decided to check on his son. The door to his apartment was open, heightening his concern. As he entered, it initially seemed the place was empty. But soon, Steve realized someone was in the bedroom. Approaching closer, he saw a young woman lying on the bed. Her pants were torn, and there was a message written in marker on her back. "All yours, damn it!" The stranger was motionless and appeared to be lifeless. The bedding was stained with blood, and bullet wounds marred the back of her head. Realizing something terrible had occurred, the man called emergency services. Paramedics confirmed severe head injuries and, consequently, the young woman's demise. Later, her identity was confirmed as Julie Kibuishi. Her purse and documents were on the kitchen table. While specialists examined the crime scene, Mr. Hare searched the apartment for his son, fearing he, too, might be in danger. Despite the apparent circumstances, he couldn't believe Sam was involved. His parental intuition told him Sam couldn't have done this. Most likely, his home was attacked, and he was taken. Original version. Unlike the father, the police held a different opinion. Law enforcement officers considered the young man a likely suspect. Being a former military member, he was well versed in handling firearms and might have had a gun in his possession. It was possible that an argument occurred between the young people, during which he lost control and deprived the girl of life. It's also well known that after military service, soldiers' mental health can be precarious. However, Sam's family stated that he had quickly adjusted to civilian life and did not exhibit aggression. Nonetheless, his relatives did not hide the fact that they supported him in every way possible after his return from service, even keeping spare keys and having access to his personal account just in case. Close friends. Samuel Hare was in the military and was known for his positive traits. Kind-hearted, a man of his word, and a loyal friend. In 2010, he returned home on a doctor's recommendation. Being frugal, he had saved about $60,000 during his service. He settled down and built a life. Sam dreamed of continuing his military career and earning an officer's rank, which led him to enroll in Orange Coast College with ease. There, the new student made friends. An aspiring designer. The young people studied anthropology together, quickly becoming friends and spending time together. Despite Julie being an only child, she was not spoiled. Her family described her as a cheerful and responsive girl, interested in dance and student theater. It was well known that there was no romantic relations. The combat veteran had been in a long-term relationship with a girl named Katarina. Living in Germany, the couple visited each other frequently. They took turns staying at each other's homes. Katerina was set to graduate the following year, after which they planned to move in together and marry. Julie was also in a relationship. Her significant other lived in Japan, and they regularly communicated via the internet. The main characters of this story were like brother and sister, supporting and helping each other. All the more shocking, especially since Julie's body was found under unmistakable circumstances. It gave the impression she had been taken advantage of, tarnishing Sam's previously impeccable reputation with suspicion. Moreover, something unexpected soon came to light. In his teenage years, Sam was suspected in a crime. According to police records, a young man had been brutally beaten by a group and later succumbed to his injuries. Members of a rival gang were suspected in the attack, and Sam was believed to have been among them. However, all charges were dropped, yet Sam spent an entire year under investigation. This fact solidified police suspicions of his propensity for violence and dubious connections to the criminal world. Investigation. While some police officers were focused on searching for the young man, others were piecing together the sequence of events. Officers were aided by Julie's mobile phone, found in her purse. By examining the device, they discovered that the young people had been in communication throughout the day. At 2:45 p.m., Sam mentioned he had gone to a friend's place to help with something, without going into details. He also shared with his friend that he planned a weekend trip out of town. However, around 11 p.m., he sent another text. Sam wanted to meet up and seemed upset. He asked Julie to come over around midnight to talk. That evening, Julie was meeting with her cousin and his fiancé. They had dinner at a restaurant and discussed the upcoming wedding, where Julie was to be a bridesmaid. After receiving Sam's message, she hurried over. Upon arriving, Julie sent her last text message, informing her brother she had arrived and mentioned hearing sobbing behind the door. Unaware of the danger, she walked into a deadly trap. Detectives believed Sam returned home under the influence, perhaps troubled by something and wanting to vent. Since Katerina wasn't around, he reached out to his college friend. During the conversation, something went wrong, causing him to become angry and attack the young woman. However, one thing remained unclear. If he sought intimacy, why end her life? There was nothing indicating that Julie resisted. Her body bore no defensive marks, and the house was in order, with everything in its place. The strange message left on Julie's back hinted at a crime motivated by jealousy, possibly stemming from a love triangle. But if that were the case, who was the message meant for? To substantiate this theory, physical evidence was needed: the weapon, fingerprints, or DNA traces. But most importantly, investigators needed to find Sam and talk to him. Unexpected twist. A week later, Sam Hare was found on May 29, 2010. Unfortunately, speaking with him was not possible. He was no longer alive and had been dismembered. His head and some body parts were discovered in El Dorado Park, while his torso was found at Liberty Theater on the Joint Forces training base in Los Alamitos. After the terrible news was shared with his family, his parents were outraged, blaming the police and media for their bias. Stephen insisted he knew his son was innocent, but others realized this too late. In that time, a shadow of doubt was cast over the honorable serviceman's name. Though it was eventually cleared, it came at a great cost. The guy in the baseball cap. A few days before the grim discovery, during the investigation, detectives tracked activity on Sam's bank accounts. If he was on the run, he would need cash. The detective's intuition was correct. The day after the crime, large sums were withdrawn from the suspect's card. However, surveillance cameras at the ATMs captured someone else. The individual turned out to be 16-year-old Wesley Freilich. The trail of the boy in the baseball cap was quickly picked up. He ordered pizza for home delivery and paid using the suspect's card. During questioning, the teenager appeared confused and didn't understand what was happening. When asked by officers how he got the card, he explained he had never met Sam and was hearing about him for the first time. He admitted receiving the card from 26-year-old Daniel Wozniak, who told him the card's owner was in jail and needed cash. Wesley knew Daniel well and decided to help. Without hesitation, he withdrew about $2,000 at various places and handed the money to Daniel, who let him buy a pizza in gratitude. The actor. Wesley and Daniel performed together in a community theater. The teenager openly admired Daniel's talent and charisma. However, acting didn't pay well, so Wozniak lived modestly but ambitiously. A few months ago, he proposed to his colleague, 22-year-old Rachel Buffett, who accepted. They were inseparable and appeared to be a strong couple, with their wedding ceremony just around the corner. When police decided to arrest the actor, it was at the worst possible moment, during his bachelor party. Needless to say, the young man was not pleased. On May 26th, during questioning, he admitted knowing Sam and had seen him a few days earlier. It turned out they were neighbors in the same apartment complex, which included not only living spaces, but also a pool, gym, recreation area, and barbecue spot. Fate brought them together at the beginning of 2010, and since then they occasionally hung out. In his testimony, Dan stated that he withdrew money from Sam's card at Sam's personal request. Dan claimed there was some shady scheme he was drawn into, which he deeply regretted. According to him, his neighbor asked him to withdraw cash and then report the card stolen to the bank to request a refund. In this situation, Sam supposedly promised Wozniak a good percentage, and since Dan was in dire need of money, he didn't refuse the dubious offer. I agreed, but I decided to ask Wesley to do it, so my face wouldn't appear on the surveillance camera and connect me to the fraud, Daniel explained. He also added that he last saw his friend in a car, accompanied by a man in a black baseball cap. He didn't know where they went. Interestingly, his fiancée told the same story, but their accounts sounded unconvincing, and Daniel was noticeably nervous. Therefore, the detectives decided to wait a bit before pressing him again. New information. At this time, the radio station was contacted by a local jazz musician named Chris. He said he knew Wozniak well and had loaned him $2,000 for rent a couple of weeks ago. On May 21st at 10:30 a.m., Dan asked Chris to stop by his home to pick up the money. However, instead of the full amount, he gave only $400, warning that it was all he had and promised to call as soon as he had more. During this time, Daniel, Rachel, and another person were present. Later, Chris recognized him as Sam Hare, the man from the news everyone was looking for. On the morning of May 22nd, Daniel contacted Chris again and repaid the debt. Upon learning the new details, Sam's parents had a false hope that their son was alive and being held hostage. However, this was not the case. After the witness shared this information, Dan presented another version of events. During the second interrogation, he said that on the morning of May 22nd, Sam came to him, appearing frantic. When asked what happened, Sam confessed he had done something foolish and ended the life of his friend. In response, Dan advised him to go to the police, but Sam threatened that if anyone else found out, there would be problems not only for him, but also for Daniel and Rachel. Fearing for his life, the new suspect did everything Sam ordered. He drove him to the specified address, after which the former soldier handed over his credit card, stating he no longer needed it and that it would come in handy for the couple. Wozniak admitted he was confused at the time and didn't know how to act. He knew well that Sam had served in combat and expected anything from him. When asked by the investigator why he changed his testimony, the actor explained that he was afraid, supposedly fearing he might be held accountable as an accomplice. Fatal mistake. However, the detectives didn't believe Daniel Wozniak's story. It was clear he was hiding something, being evasive, and trying to justify himself. When the detectives asked for a DNA sample to rule him out as a suspect, he went silent. After some time, he admitted he had been in Sam's apartment and had seen the crime scene firsthand, which meant he could have left traces. I knew Sam had a stash of money, so I decided to take it since he was on the run, Daniel explained his actions. At the same time, he swore he didn't end Julie's life, even though all the evidence seemed to point to him. By this point, the detective's suspicions had solidified. It was obvious that the suspect was lying. So the authorities decided to use the well-practiced good cop, bad cop method. Eventually, Daniel's position weakened and he was officially reclassified as a suspect, alongside Sam, who still hadn't been found. Thus, the investigation considered that several people might have been involved in Julie's crime. The final piece of the puzzle came from a conversation between Rachel and Dan. Apparently, Rachel didn't realize they were being monitored and made a big mistake. Throughout Wozniak's arrest, his fiancée was unusually calm, as though the canceled wedding didn't upset her, suggesting she knew more than she let on. Her involvement in the crime wasn't ruled out. During a visit, Rachel told Dan that she had given a backpack to Dan's brother, as he had asked. The recording of the conversation was added to the case file and played in court, becoming a key piece of evidence. The show is over. After talking to his fiancée, the suspect was called in by investigators. The young man appeared confused and cornered, seemingly realizing it was over and denying was pointless. So he confessed to everything at once. As he spoke, he grew more confident, occasionally smiling. He began his confession by saying, "I ended both their lives because I'm crazy." He then described his perfect crime. On May 21st, he asked Hare to help move things in the theater's attic, which Sam agreed to, as he never refused to help. When Sam turned away, Daniel shot him in the back. Sam didn't immediately understand what had happened, likely never realizing he had become a victim of his friend. In pain, he fell to the floor, remaining conscious, and asked Dan to check what had hit him and help him up. Instead, Daniel approached and shot him in the head. Then, Daniel left the body in the attic and went to perform on stage. After successfully completing the show, he returned to the crime scene and used a saw and an axe to dismember the former soldier's body. Later that evening, he sent Julie a message from Sam's phone, asking to meet. She immediately responded to the request. When she arrived, he pretended to sob behind the door, then let her in and asked her to come to the bedroom. There, he shot the unfortunate woman twice in the back of the head. But that wasn't enough for the scoundrel. He decided to stage an assault and tore her pants, leaving a provocative message on her shirt. He wanted to divert suspicion and tarnish his friend's reputation. The next day, Wozniak approached Wesley, then returned to the theater, where he calmly put the body parts into bags. Some of them, including the head, were placed in a large bag and dumped in the park, not even bothering to bury the remains. During his account, Dan mentioned that he found his actions amusing. He then revealed where he had left the pieces. Despite his confession, Wozniak didn't consider himself guilty and requested a lawyer. Upon hearing the criminal's version, the detectives proposed their own. They believed they were dealing with a cold, calculating criminal, not a madman. He executed his monstrous plan for financial gain. It was known that he needed money and had significant debts. He also wanted to have a lavish wedding, but lacked the funds. Perhaps during one of their gatherings, Sam had confided in him about having a substantial amount of money in his account, which sparked Daniel's bloodthirsty plan. He decided to frame Hare and stage the crime. Initially, the investigation was led to believe it. For a long time, the missing man was considered guilty. Irrefutable evidence. Detectives soon found a backpack full of evidence. It was located near the home of the defendant's parents and contained Sam's personal belongings, clothes, a mobile phone, and a wallet. After searching the criminal's residence and examining his computer's browser history, some intriguing facts emerged. Daniel's premeditation was evident from his Google searches: how to hide a body and quick ways to end someone's life. They also found the weapons used in the crime and dismemberment. Ballistic tests later confirmed that the shots were fired from the recovered pistol. Sam's torso was so mutilated that it could only be identified by a tattoo on his chest that read "Mom and Dad" in a heart. The next day, investigators shared the shocking news with the Hare family. It was a devastating blow, especially since it was the eve of their son's birthday, making it feel like a cruel joke. Nobody could understand what their loved one had done to deserve such a monstrous death. Until the case was solved, the Kibuishi family was also bewildered about why their daughter was taken from them. She had often spoken of her college friend and admired him, and it was hard for everyone to believe that such a pleasant young man could commit such horrific acts. Eventually, the truth came to light. Samuel Hare was buried as a hero with military honors. His family, Julie's family, Friends, acquaintances, and former colleagues attended the farewell ceremony. Other compassionate citizens of Costa Mesa also came to pay their respects. Arrests. Finally, justice was served. The real criminal was caught. In November 2012, other individuals were arrested: his fiancée Rachel and his brother Tim. They were charged with being accomplices in hiding evidence and misleading the police. Detectives believed Daniel's girlfriend knew about his plans from the start, but she insisted otherwise, claiming she was unaware of the crimes. She stated she only fulfilled Dan's request to pass the backpack to Tim, who then hid it in a secret place. Allegedly, neither was interested in its contents or understood what was happening. Rachel was released on bail while awaiting her hearing. In February 2013, Buffett appeared on Dr. Phil, where she publicly declared she had been duped by her ex-fiancé. Verdict. In December 2015, nearly 5.5 years later, Daniel Wozniak went to trial. The prosecution viewed the defendant's actions as so heinous and cynical that they sought the death penalty. The prosecutor argued that greed was the motive behind Sam's death, while Julie's life was ended without reason, only to frame hair. It was determined that the accused needed money to pay for a wedding and a luxurious honeymoon. He knew Rachel wanted a grand celebration and was willing to go to great lengths to fulfill her dream, even if it meant taking lives. No one could have imagined him capable of such things. He was considered a likable person, a talented actor, and a true life of the party. However, investigators revealed his darker side. It's worth noting Wozniak's defense. He secured one of the best attorneys. The lengthy pre-trial period was due to numerous motions and complaints against the detectives who conducted the investigation. The defense claimed they violated his rights by eavesdropping on his conversations and coercing him into confessing. Simultaneously, they insisted he was mentally unstable. Despite numerous examinations, experts found no significant psychological disorders. During the investigation, Daniel seemed to revel in his notoriety. He also appeared on a talk show where he discussed the challenges he faced throughout the ordeal. His face often broke into a smile that became his trademark over time. Over 20 witnesses were called by the prosecution during the trial, including Wesley Freilich, who testified against him. Initially, the young man was arrested, but was later released when detectives concluded he didn't know what had happened and was simply fulfilling his acquaintance's request. Daniel's brother Tim also spoke against him, explaining he had no idea about the violent events and was inadvertently caught up in the intrigue. The defense didn't present anyone to vouch for the actor. Even his family didn't attend the trial. It was evident that the accused did not see himself as guilty and showed no remorse. Daniel's attorney attempted to cast Rachel in a negative light, shifting the blame onto her, claiming she was materialistic and manipulative. He likely wanted more than one defendant to look bad. The jury took an hour to reach a verdict. The court found Daniel Wozniak guilty and sentenced him to death. The victims' families were satisfied with the decision. "I only regret that I can't carry out the sentence myself," admitted Stephen Hare. Unfortunately, over time it became clear that the sentence would likely not be carried out. The governor of California announced a moratorium on the death penalty, effectively commuting the cold-blooded criminal's sentence to life imprisonment alongside 700 other inmates. This allowed him the opportunity to live on, unlike his victims. Tim Wozniak was found guilty of hiding evidence and, as part of a plea deal, received a 10-day sentence. In the fall of 2018, Rachel Buffett faced trial and was found guilty of providing false testimony, resulting in a 32-month prison sentence. As of now, the actress is free, and the wedding between the couple never took place. The history of crime worldwide includes numerous cases where money was the motive. However, this criminal story is shocking in its vileness and hopelessness. For his base desires, Wozniak deprived two wonderful people of their lives. Like a skilled puppeteer, he controlled their fates, and perhaps such people have a special place reserved in hell, or at least that's what the victims' families believe.